Hello and welcome back to another episode of Only a Bag, the guide to Italian travel. I'm Nathaniel Mellor.
And I'm Darcy Melton.
I am still working on my elocution. I hope the last two episodes had me pronouncing words a little more clearly. I can't do clear pronunciation and excitement.
Oh, I thought you were going to say and thinking.
Oh yeah, no, that too. I'm so focused on I'm like, I can't do more than one thing at once. Single track minded over here. So today we are talking about, it's kind of a, not broad, it's a very narrow, broad subject, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And it's how to have a perfect flight, which
TM.
is TM. I love that. Yeah, please, this is trademarked. Or kind of maybe best flight practices. Mm-hmm. We haven't come up with a title yet. It kind of depends. I don't know. We always come up with the idea of the title after we do the episode because we land on something during the episode.
It's like writing a book and then titling it.
Exactly. Rather than just ham-fisting the name of the book into the book itself. So we wanted to kind of talk about, I guess, how to have a perfect flight, what to bring, what to wear, what to do.
Yeah, how to prepare for a flight.
Yeah, exactly. And before we get started, we just wanted to say thank you to everyone who has followed us since the last two episodes, technically, because they were
Ever.
Thank
you for following us.
Thank you for following us. Thank you for following us. It does help, and it helps the channel grow. If you'd like to follow us, I believe there's a follow button somewhere on your screen. I hope. I don't really know what you're looking at, to be honest.
Whatever your platform is, hopefully there's a positive follow, love button.
Yeah, that would be very cool. And if you liked it and you want to leave a review, we'd love that as well. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can do so at Only a Bag Podcast on Instagram. If you have a question, comment, concern, you can message us there. You can also email us, onlyabagpodcast@gmail.com. And if you just want to read some things, we have a website that I am still slowly adding to. It's hopefully in a year from now or 6 months, it's going to be just jam-packed of information. But a lot of it does take time. And then I don't think I write the same way in which we talk. So it's
a little different.
It's hard. I can't just boil down a transcript into a article, especially because this isn't necessarily, it's hard. This would only be 10 different articles, not one giant article. Mm-hmm. So we have onlyabag.com if you'd like to read any of our lovely tips and tricks and hints. And mostly it's, I think right now it's it's pretty much only Italy and house sitting and digital nomadism. And then if you'd like to support us, in the description will be some affiliate links. This does not cost you any extra. It's just if you happen to be buying something that you see a link to, such as Booking or Expedia, or I think we're going to talk about power adapters at some point, not adapters, power banks. And we have a link to a Belkin power bank that we like. All that is in the description. If you want to support the channel. And again, a huge shout out and a huge thank you to everybody else who has used those links.
Yes.
Tremendous, genuinely tremendous help. It helps support the podcast. So thank you. Mm-hmm. And I guess without further ado, with some more ado, a slight more ado, if you will. What we meant to talk about last time, in the first episode we published last time on when to book your flight and your hotel, we talked about the different booking websites, mm-hmm. and the kind of strengths, the pros and cons. And one that we forgot, but we mentioned that we would talk about and then did not talk about, was credit card booking travel portals, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm. Booking a flight through the credit card company.
Yeah,
portal.
And through their portal. Yeah, Capital One Travel, Chase Travel, I think American Express Travel. They all have a very similar name scheme. And very briefly, I think we wanted to talk about it only because there are benefits to it that we have not. We have credit cards. We have cards that we use as travel credit cards, in the sense of, we've mentioned in a previous episode, we have a Capital One Quicksilver, which is a very basic cashback credit card with no foreign transaction fee. We have a Saver One card, which is a slightly nicer cashback, but only on food. I think it gives mm-hmm. A cashback on restaurants and grocery stores.
That's also through Capital One.
Also no foreign transaction fees.
Mm-hmm.
We got that one because pretty much as soon as they released it, because I think like when we looked at like the, your yearly spending report,
It's all on food.
Yeah, it was like 78% on food and restaurants. And I was like, oh. And then we heard of like, oh, this new card that you can use in grocery stores. It was amazing. It seems really helpful too, just for like we can't use it at Costco, which is a bummer because Costco doesn't accept MasterCard. And they have their own credit card, obviously. But I'm like, that's when we're in the States, we go to Costco. But I feel like when we're in the States visiting, the only thing we buy is food.
And when we're here in Italy living, the only thing we buy is food.
That's a good point. But we use cash here, I was thinking, except at the big grocery stores. So all that being said is we do have these cards that we use as travel credit cards. And we've recently started going through like the Capital One travel portal in order to get a bit of... They have like basically the biggest thing is they have price drop protection for free. Like I think through Kayak and I think through... Booking and Expedia, you have to pay a little extra.
And what does price drop protection mean?
It means when you book a flight, let's just say for $600 round trip, and then in 2 weeks, it ends up being $550, they will refund you. And you can only do it once. So like if you think it's going to go lower.
But like once per
trip, yes. Okay. So if you think it's going to go lower, you can do it lower. And this is typically something that I think like I said, Kayak will charge you for, and it's almost never worth it because like the trip might drop $30, but Kayak charged you $65 for the thing. They've also, some of them now too, like a Skyscanner, it's like you can pay $49 to lock in that rate. So, and it's supposed to be the other way around. So it's like in case it goes up, you've locked in a lower rate.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just is.
That sounds like a scam.
It does. And I'm not like, not to throw shade at Skyscanner, but it's also like, I don't know, it just feels... I think it just makes it seem like it's like all of a sudden you're gambling on a flight, and you're trying to, I mean, you're always gambling on a flight, I guess, but I don't know, it's the idea of like, because price drop protection just makes sense in the sense of, I think that it's like in the way we buy things today, there's often like, we'll meet that price, and if it goes lower, we'll match that price. Like there's no price drop, like once you buy a car and then the year later you find out it's actually cheaper, you can't get your money back. But I guess that would make sense more than just like going to the dealership and then saying, I'm going to put $700 down on this car. But if because it gets more expensive, I want to lock in this rate now. It's like, no, that
seems weird.
Right? I don't know. And maybe people listening, you're like, no, that doesn't seem weird at all. That actually is super normal. And it's just something that we have not come across. So yeah, that basically wraps up very briefly, just the credit cards. If you want to check out the Saver One or Quicksilver, we have a little like, refer a friend link in the description that somebody actually used earlier this year, so thank you. If that was you, you're amazing. And they're very useful. It's just, I think like you and I put the travel on the credit card simply for the price drop protection, as I mentioned. I think through Capital One, you get like baggage protection. Like if you lose your bag or if it's stolen, they'll reimburse you. They have, I think, other protections around a delayed flight, a late flight, getting bumped. Some of it is too with their nicer credit cards. It's like travel insurance baked into it. So if you get sick and you can't go, they will refund your trip. Or if something happens, and we're going to talk about travel insurance in a later episode. But all that being said is we have found that it's a little safer to do a credit card because we found that if there's ever an issue, like I think we talked about this in the Rome episode last year. We were in Rome and we got the week-long pass from the kiosk, but it was out of passes. Right. So we purchased like 35 euros of a pass. It didn't come out of the machine. We tried to contact ATAC, which is like the Rome transportation company. They never responded. They were just like, oh, okay, that's terrible, I guess. That's like a bunch of automatic messages. So we contacted Capital One and like, yeah, that's fine. Here's your $30 back. No problem. And historically, it's traditionally, there we go. It's a lot easier to get your money back from a credit card company simply because it's their money. So they're like, we want our money back, than a debit card, which is a little bit more like, oh, that does suck. You should be way more careful when you give away your bank details. So we have noticed that, like, I think a couple different occasions we've used a credit card and been super thankful that we did, because it was like a kind of like, oh my God, we don't have to worry about this. Not to sound like a spokesperson for the entire American credit system.
Yeah, because it's kind of the worst, but there's some benefits.
Yeah, traveling.
Are you going to talk about travel, like, quote, travel credit cards versus the kind of cards that we use for traveling?
I guess so. That's actually, maybe there's a really good segue into it. Um, yeah, because essentially, that's a great segue. Thank you,
you.
Darcy. Um, no, there are travel credit cards, like Capital One, Chase, American Express,
They give
Bank
you
of
like
America.
miles.
They give you
That's
miles.
like a typical travel credit card idea.
Yeah, they almost all of them charge you about roughly $100 a year. I think the nicer ones, I think Chase Sapphire Reserve and American Venture X, no, whoops, Capital One Venture X, both charge you $395 a year. But both of them give you like $300 back a month in like travel credit, and they pay for your
A month?
oh, excuse me, a year.
Okay.
A year. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
A year.
Life hack.
Sorry, that's crazy. They give you $300 back a year in a travel credit. So not cash back, but like if you're going to be traveling the next year, you could just use that to cover part of a flight. I think too they refund your TSA PreCheck, your global entry, and then of course the nice ones, those $400 a year ones are like complimentary access to all these lounges and travel insurance and this and that, and they're really lovely. It's just, even you and I think, who travel a lot, comparatively, it's still kind of a pretty big purchase, like a $400 a year purchase for something, because we might be traveling a lot now, but again, going back to sort of, for people listening who are just like, oh, there's nothing wrong with that. When you stop using it, close the credit card. Part of the issue there is you do hit it hurts your credit score quite a bit to close out of a credit card account. So it's a little bit kind of like you're locked in for a very long time and you're paying that $400 a year, even once like you've stopped traveling, until you just go ahead and bite the bullet and cancel the card and take the hit. However, there are also, again, depending on how loyal you are, dear listener, almost every airline, probably every airline, has their own credit card for that airline, if that makes sense. And that's like, the Delta one, I think, is through American Express. They give you, I think, 5 times the points or 3 times the miles, something like that, when you book a flight through them. And then they give you like one mile for every dollar spent when you just use it normally.
But are those cards usually ones you have to pay a yearly fee for?
Unfortunately, yeah. Okay. Those are usually $100 a year, but if you are somebody who really does like traveling, not necessarily in style, but like more in style than like economy, they are not a bad investment, only because for Delta, for instance, when you get their credit card, you're automatically elevated to like gold Sky Mile member. So you pass like the normal, the silver, right to gold, and that gives you, I think, like a free checked bag. It gives you some sort of like complimentary access to beverages on on domestic flights, and priority boarding, like I think it's boarding group 4 or 5 instead of boarding group 9. So it's a little nicer. But again, it's one of those things where I think you have to fly at least twice a year, or 2 trips a year, for it to be something that is worth it in the long run. Okay. Otherwise, I feel like it's just, you might as well, because you and I, it's a free credit card what we use. There's no yearly fee. And the biggest thing is just I don't want to get charged a foreign transaction fee every time we use it. And to be fair, these travel credit cards typically don't have foreign transaction fees, but like the American Express, it is very difficult to find somebody to take American Express in Italy. It is almost impossible to find somebody to take Discover in Italy. So if you're not using Visa or MasterCard or Maestro or Barclays, I don't know if Barclays is their own thing. I think Barclays goes through MasterCard. Then you're kind of out of luck, I think. I don't know, what is the Diners Club? Isn't that another one?
Is that still a thing?
I think so.
Okay.
But a lot of those kind of cards are not taken in Italy. So that all being said, yes, a travel credit card is definitely worth it if you are looking for just a really nice flight, a really nice experience at very little cost comparatively, because a lot of times like you get bumped up in a way that would cost you hundreds of dollars normally. And I think even so, like even on these flights, once you're a certain status, you automatically get bumped up if there's a free seat. And they go through the list. So it's like the platinum members get bumped up first. If there's no platinum, there's diamond. If there's no diamond, or diamond and platinum, and then gold. And if there's no, then it goes down the list. So if you see people getting randomly bumped up, it's typically because they are, they have some sort of, status with that airline.
And we'll get into that later. There was a golden age of flying when if you looked nice enough, like you wore your best outfit, you'd get, automatically bumped up.
They'd single you from the crowd with like a silver platter. Sir, ma'am, would you like to join us in first class?
Here's your complimentary champagne.
Yes.
And a warm towel. Yeah, that doesn't so much happen anymore, but we'll get into that later. But like you said, if you see people getting bumped up, it's probably because they have some sort of like membership. They're part of the credit card scheme.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so segueing from that, and we're going to try to keep this episode, by the way, under 2 episodes. So we're going to try to keep it as 1 episode. But yeah, segueing from that, because it was such a nice little...
Thanks. I'm really killing it with the segues today.
I know. I like the French. I don't know I was trying to make a joke there about the French created the word segue, so they probably really go with segues. It didn't really work out. We're going to cut that in post.
We're not. Keep it in.
But no, so the first thing actually is before we even talk about flights is actually talking about the airport itself. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason we wanted to talk about this, I think, is most flights to Europe, depending on where you're leaving from, will connect through at least 1 airport, sometimes 2. Mm-hmm. I think when you and I fly, almost always we have to connect through 2 airports to get to Rome, unless we're flying like Delta, which puts us through Atlanta.
Right.
But I think everywhere else would put us through. But even sometimes Delta will go from like Rome to Paris, Paris to Atlanta, or Paris to JFK, or Paris to actually just those 2, and then down to Savannah. So depending where you are, that is a good thing to look out for. Like, I mean, when you're buying these tickets, is how long you're spending in airports, and kind of factor that in, because you and I, just as a thing, like to spend all of our time in airports before the long flight.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
We try to so if it's like 2 connections, we try to make sure that like it's the long flight is after all of the airport time, not necessarily, because we've done it before where, it's like you have 1 more connection and then an hour flight down to, or 2-hour flight, and you're just exhausted, mm-hmm. You're wiped, you're just sort of in a zombified state.
We did 1 flight over here. It was when we were first traveling, like maybe 5 years ago or something, where we did 3 different legs, and I just remember being stuck in... Were we in Germany? We were in some Scandinavian place.
No, it was Germany because we flew
Germany?
Lufthansa,
okay.
Yeah.
At like 4 o'clock in the morning, or I just remember feeling like a zombie, mm-hmm. and the airport was empty, but we were stuck there for a few hours, and I'm sure it was a lovely airport. I just was exhausted and was barely functioning at that point. Yeah,
no, exactly. So basically the tips for the airport, the first one is roller bag, mm-hmm. which is a weird tip, granted. But I think and we're going to talk about in a different episode later on, like kind of comparing bags, which sounds like a silly thing, I think, to compare, because I assume if you're listening to this, you understand how bags work. Like you've pretty much figured it out at this point. But there's a lot of like, I don't know, do you get those Instagram stories or Instagram reels where it's like, I made the mistake of traveling to Portugal with a roller bag, and it's
no, you get those because you're a gearhead and they know that.
A gearhead? Oh, that sounds so fancy.
Is that not a thing?
I think it is.
Okay.
I like to say I'm obsessive about bags and other things that I buy. So gearhead makes it sound really nice. Well, I get a lot of those. It's like, they're like, the wheels breaking off, and it's like the pieces of plastic chipping everywhere, and, or like, going to Spain, and it's like the steps up to your, hotel room or your hostel. Mm-hmm. And Italy is a lot like that. We've talked about this before. Rome's fairly flat, despite being called the, city of seven hills.
Yeah.
But then if you're in Florence, it's also pretty flat. I'm not sure I said what but there, because Florence is quite flat. And Florence has a lot less smooth surfaces, smooth mm-hmm. roads. Rome tends to have like the sidewalks are pretty smooth in Rome, but the street is just oftentimes it's the cobblestone.
Yeah.
And that will destroy your roller bag. Mm-hmm. But if you're doing if you're going to be in Siena or anywhere that's a hilltop town, a roller bag really can be a nightmare, because it feels like you're just carrying 20-something pounds behind you, without any other way to carry it. Mm-hmm. And the reason I mentioned roller bag is if most of your trip is going to be in airports, like you're going to be traveling around a lot, or even train stations, a roller bag is super helpful, because train stations are smooth, airports are smooth. you can put your feet up on your roller bag. It's easy to open and close if you need to get something from inside. I don't know. It's like for us, we usually attach our backpack to the roller bag on top, so it kind of becomes all in one little thing. However, if most of your trip is once you're here, you're going to be doing like hostels or a lot of bouncing around, just like even like buses. Honestly, a backpack I feel like on a bus is a lot easier than a roller bag.
It is, yeah.
It depends. You're traveling, I guess. So if you think you're going to be flying a lot in your trip, a roller bag is helpful.
I would say also if you're an average American over a certain age, if you're not like hiking and biking everywhere if you're in your 50s and you're not like, super fit.
Yeah, no, fair. Or if you're in your 30s and you're not hiking and biking everywhere.
Yeah, I would just go with a roller bag. Unless you're doing like the hostel thing or you're planning on doing like hiking trails, then for sure bring a backpack, with the hip strap and all that. But if you're just like a regular average American person, I would say pack as little as you can and bring a roller bag. And be prepared to pick it up. Like make sure that this is a huge thing. I know we're going to get into bags in a different episode, but you should be able to on your own lift your bag. What you mean, even if you can't lift it over your head necessarily, because I know bags can be heavy, that's okay. But you need to be able to lift your bag and walk with it, for at least a few blocks. Otherwise, you need to bring less
especially
stuff.
Just like if I may, and the reason for that is sometimes I'm using Rome as an example. Like when we were house sitting in Rome, there's a bridge we have to cross, and it is a unpaved cobblestone bridge with really gnarly cobblestones, for lack of a better word. I mean, like they will absolutely break the wheel. And they have broken the wheel, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, on our pink roller bag. They basically broke the wheel and that broke the entire bottom. We had to tape it up. And no, you have to basically carry it over the bridge, which isn't like that far. But when we overpacked that bag sometimes, especially leaving, because we'd go to the markets and buy all these things, it was quite heavy. But a backpack, the few times I brought a backpack, it's a totally different world. Like it really is a lot easier over long distances where it's not even hike. I mean, for me, it's not necessarily hiking. It's just the like I'm thinking where we live now, where it's like all uphill. A roller bag, there's nowhere smooth to bring the roller bag.
You're carrying the roller bag all the way up the hill.
Yeah, obviously I used Siena before, but that's one that I think people will be visiting. And it's you think like, oh, I'm just gonna tool around the streets with my roller bag going to my hotel, but it's just you run the risk of breaking the roller bag, and there's not much. I feel like there's not much a roller bag can do about that when it just smashes into a stone corner of something. So yeah.
Although I will say, maybe in our bag, I'll prepare for our bag episode because we just bought new Delsey roller bags in the last year from Costco because they were a good deal and they were on sale. And they have some sort of warranty. And on my last trip, one of the wheels broke. And I'm curious if they can. I haven't done what I was supposed to do. I have not seen if they can fix it. But before our bag episode, I'll see if there are like warranties and stuff, because that's a good thing to keep in mind for buying new luggage before a trip.
For sure. The warranty. Yeah. Definitely, I think something to pay attention to. But for the next episode, or not the next one, for some episode, the next thing is adapters. That kind of ties in with maybe just things you need for your trip.
Yeah.
But a lot of hotels might have an adapter, maybe.
But don't count on it.
But do not count on it. Just definitely bring travel adapters. And if you're in example, as I was flying from the States to Rome, I was supposed to go from like Philadelphia to Rome directly. I ended up having to get a flight to London and then to Rome. And the UK adapter is different from the Italian adapter. So I had only US and EU. I didn't have UK, so I couldn't charge anything, which was a bit of an issue because we talked about kind of in even the last episode was like the idea that people keep like their boarding passes on the phone and the reservations on the phone, and I didn't have, thankfully, my boarding pass, but I had no way to access like the internet with a dead phone and a dead computer and no way to charge it. And it's like I could have gotten the charger, but you're at an airport and it's like a $40 converter. And I'm like, oh my God, is there like another way I can do this? Thankfully there was, and British Airways paid me back for buying that converter because they're the ones who canceled the flight. So that's just a fun little get a travel adapter. The next kind of one is it's our little tip, I think, for ourselves, and we like to call it salt, fat, sugar. But it's essentially at an airport, especially if it's a leg of a trip where it's not even if things aren't going well. It's just we're tired. It's not. It's like as you mentioned that we feel like zombies. Like we just got in. We have a 4-hour wait before the next flight. Like I need something. We typically kind of like. It's probably not healthy for sure, and I'm not saying like you should do this for health reasons, but it's like that sort of getting the serotonin or the, there's just the feel good chemicals in your brain going. The dopamine, I guess. I don't know what lights
I don't
up.
think that's actually how dopamine works.
Well, that's good to
Scientists
know.
have recently discovered, but happy chemicals do exist.
Okay, so the happy chemicals, we like to get those going, and it's usually like some sort of French fries or like a sugary coffee drink or I don't know. It's always something like. I mean, genuinely, you should probably not be eating this like ever, but it's just in an airport when I'm like everything is not like we're just exhausted. There's something about that like we've noticed just even time like we're flying out of North Macedonia and there's just a disaster with the flight. Like they ended up charging us enormous amounts of money because we didn't check in online, so they like charge $100-something to check in there
Because we were on a what are they called?
With a budget carrier.
Budget carrier. Mm-hmm.
And then I think they took all of our. We brought those little bottles of alcohol for people as gifts, and they took all of them because it was something like weirdly like mislabeled. Like it said on the thing it was under the certain amount of ounces, but it's one of those things like I think the glass bottle said 5 ounces, but the label said 3 ounces or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
So they took all of them, and of course we were both like, can we just drink them now? Like, is this like, do you have to take them? What if I just drink like 2 ounces out? Like, are we good? So I think we ended up getting fries there, and it was like a just total game changer. It was just like, ooh. I'm feeling good. This is nice. So again, it's not like, your mileage may vary very much. This could also lead very much, like for us, sometimes it leads to just, especially if it's a sugar spike and then we crash and potentially we're worse off. But I think you can throw caffeine in there, salt, fat, sugar, caffeine. That's like the holy quadrinity of
Unless you're
things.
taking an overnight flight and you want to fall asleep.
Yes, in which case that's...
Cut out the caffeine.
Yeah.
But the rest of it is good.
And last but not least, and it was a pretty segue, my turn for a lovely segue. This would segue to the actual flight itself, but a change of clothes. It's something I think you and I recently started doing.
Bringing a change of clothes.
Bringing a change of clothes, like with you on the flight. Like obviously, if you're going to travel to Italy, you should probably bring more than you're wearing, just so you don't have the same pair of clothes every day. But no, we started bringing extra clothes with us on the plane. And part of it is just, again, after a 9-hour flight, especially if you're in a connecting airport, changing the socks, changing underwear, changing a shirt, at least for me, those are all just like, I feel completely refreshed afterwards. And it kind of, I don't know, it changes my outlook a little bit. It just feels a little bit like I just woke up maybe, or a little bit like, oh, I'm ready to, get started on the new day. Sometimes when I'm just in the same clothes because I think we travel, because we're so far away from the airport, our travel days are usually 25 to 28 hours.
Yeah, if we do it all in one go.
Yeah, so it becomes one of those things where I'm like my clothes have attached to me. So it is nice, I think, to have a change of clothes. And you bring extra dresses.
Yeah, so I always wear a dress when I travel, like a T-length dress. That way I can sit with my legs crisscrossed, don't have to worry about flashing anybody. But also I hate like going to airport and bathrooms in the airport and then bathrooms on the plane. I hate when like my pants, like the bottom of my pants touch the ground or anything. Like I feel like a dress is just a safer way to have your clothes touch fewer disgusting things.
That's a good point.
So I bring 2 dresses, to kind of like below the knee dresses just for ease and comfort,
But also they're quite, I mean, maybe not, but I was thinking too, because the plane does sort of go between Arctic and surface of the sun. So yes. I think having like, but typically the flights we've been on are always quite chilly.
They are, yeah.
Like and when they're taking off, they're super hot.
Somehow someone else's little wind blower, what's that called? The little air conditioning vent is always pointed at you, and I can never figure out like. There's always someone's, and I don't know whose it is, but it's always blowing.
It's a draft on you.
Yeah. So a longer dress to cover up my legs and a little sweater and. I always end up using the blanket. I just feel cozy.
Yeah. I feel like I'm getting on the flight. I'm like, I'm never gonna use the blanket. I don't need a blanket. I need a pillow. And by the end, I'm like cuddled up in my little. I tucked myself in. I have the blanket. I'm with my headphones on. It's a very lovely experience. Which does bring us nicely, I think, to the flight itself.
I have to raise my hand.
Darcy's raising her hand.
I think we've forgotten to talk about 2 airport things.
We did actually forget to talk about Darcy. Thank you. So Nathaniel's segues we're 1 out of 2. On the good segues.
You were so excited for the segue.
I know.
I'm sorry.
So the first thing, Darcy, would you like to bring it in?
Security.
Security.
Okay, so maybe my biggest. Well, there's a few things regarding security, but can we talk about Smith detection?
Sure.
Okay, because that's like insider tip. It's not. Lots of people know about it, but
I really don't think they do, to be
No?
honest. No.
Okay.
Because I think you and I are super concerned about that. Not
Yeah.
concerned, but like, I know it's on the front of our minds going
Yeah.
through security, and I don't think anybody else pays attention.
okay. So share this with your friends, but keep it a closely guarded secret. Like, don't tell your enemies.
Good point.
So Smith detection is one of the security devices, like the X-ray machine thingies. Smith detection is different than the more old school
X-ray
machines. Yeah, and for those, you don't have to take out your laptop or electronics. Is that it?
Well, you also, they typically ask that you put everything into it.
Yeah.
Because one of the tips that that I learned before these things was that basically empty your pockets, your phone, your wallet, your keys, everything, and put it in your bag physically. So that way there's not a question of like, oh my God, did I forget my keys in the tray? Did I forget my money in the tray or something like that? It's all of that. And even your belt, you can put all of that in your bag if you wanted to, in the security line or going to the security line. And that's something I used to do. And actually on the Smith detection, the line for Smith detection, that's a big thing they recommend. They're like, put all of it in your bag. And the things are bigger. The little trays are bigger, but they want like everything has to be in the tray. Like I think the roller bag has to be in the tray. The backpack has to be in the tray.
Because it has such good, I don't know, X-ray
Something.
vision. I don't know what it does, but it's really good at seeing individually, and it's like kind of cool if you look at their. I don't know how the other ones work, but sometimes you can see on the monitor of the Smith detection one after you go through that it's like multicolored and all fun.
Like different densities or whatever it is. Yeah.
But for spotting those machines, they do look different than the typical sort of X-ray ones have a smaller profile and they're like lighter gray. They look like regular ones, but then the Smith detection ones are like, it almost looks like an MRI. It's like bigger
sure. I can see
and
that.
dark gray, and because they're good at branding, they say Smith detection, you know, right on the front, and it's like a dark blue thing, and then Smith detection.
And that's the only reason we obviously, the reason we mentioned the Smith detection is that's something we look for typically when we're going through the passport line, because just past passport is the I guess the X-ray line. I don't know what that's called. And it's something what we try to do is ask or try. And to be clear, I don't really know how these things work. So I don't know if they're like, I don't know. I just
like how they file people.
No.
Oh.
Just the machine itself. I don't think it destroys like your computer or anything like that, because it seems like it wouldn't, because we've gone through them multiple times. But I know like when when they switched from the metal detectors to those little things you
full
had to put,
body scan things.
Yeah, and everybody was like, oh, they're actually did blah blah blah. And it has not stopped airports from using them. So I don't know if this is going to be something where we find out one day that's like terrible. Like I don't know. But we use it because it makes the security line a lot shorter.
And
really
there's fewer rules. Like it seems like it is much more streamlined. And with the regular X-ray machines, it seems like every airport almost has different rules for them. Like where you're supposed to put your laptop, if you're supposed to use several different bins or one bin, or whether your backpack's supposed to be in a bin or not. Like it's more complicated with the other machines. So we do always try to get through the line with the Smith detection. So we'll ask, like especially in JFK, they have like one Smith detection machine and like 8 other regular X-rays.
Yeah. And
you're at the whim of the people working in the airport who are putting you into different lines. It's just like a pray and be nice situation.
Well, I think that's the thing. It's pray and be nice, but I think also you and I do try to angle, because usually when you go through passport control, oftentimes there are people who like go to this line, go to that line, but sometimes it's not like they do want you to find your own lane. So I immediately try to find the one that's like I'll cut through like lines to get to that one, because it does. And it's just, again, part of it is when we're running late, it's huge. And part of it is just like, you and I don't have backpack sleeves in our laptop sleeves in our backpack. So we use I think we both have hiking backpacks technically. So we use the Camelback little water pocket insert as a laptop sleeve, which just means it's quite difficult to get to when you have things piled on top of it. So yeah, the Smith detection is definitely a big one. A little insider tip for y'all. And the second is just basically TSA pre-check, clear, global entry. Is it really worth it? Is it not? And
I think clear's a scam.
for sure I think Clear is a scam because I think it's only at like 2 different airports. It's like JFK and something else, and they charge you $300 for the year, where TSA PreCheck's $100. And I think the thing is, I think it's a scam only too because you have to like sign up. Like it's like, I don't know, you get a free trial for this one, but you have to already sign up for.
You have to give them your credit card information. Yeah.
I don't know. It feels weird. It's also like even when at JFK when they're doing it, it's like no one else understands how the line works. Like the people working there don't really know the Clear members go. And then the people who are doing the security are like, what are you doing here? This isn't...
They just push through.
Yeah.
If you've been at JFK anytime in the last few years when they're doing Clear, basically it is, if you have never heard of Clear, it is like a private company version of TSA PreCheck.
Which I think, by the way, I could be wrong. I thought TSA PreCheck too was a private company. I thought that was associated with TSA. But I think, and I could be dead wrong, and I'll look this up maybe, but not maybe, I'll definitely look it up. But when I was looking up Clear... They said that just like basically TSA what I was looking up on some Forbes article, they mentioned that TSA PreCheck's also a private company. They just use the TSA in their name.
I didn't know that.
I know.
Okay.
Because they're like,
It's weird though because Clear, you don't, whenever because they offer like free trial in the JFK airport. I'm sure other airports are like free trial. Go ahead, pass the line, like skip ahead Disney line is what it is. But for TSA PreCheck, you have to do some sort of interview. I know.
Yes. Yeah.
But for Clear, you just go to one of their kiosks and fill out some sort of information, and then you skip the line. But JFK is a nightmare. Their international flights security area, it's horrific these days. But the Clear people, like you just blow through the line, which seems great as a passenger, but I don't know. There's just something weird about it.
Yeah.
It's like like you said, the people who work in JFK who work for the airport don't seem to know how it works. The Clear people just seem to be like, we're just going to plug on through.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems weird.
TSA PreCheck, by the way, is run through TSA, but they do subcontract. Clear is one of them. They subcontract out people to help you sign up for it. So I don't know if Clear is not. Clear might be TSA PreCheck. It's just through Clear rather than through, I think there's Telos is another one and something else is another one.
Weird.
And there's also Global Entry. Similar but different. Similar in the sense of it just gets you through security lines in Europe, and not necessarily through security lines. It gets you through the passport control in Europe a little bit quicker. And again, it might be worth it. I don't know. We haven't ever done TSA PreCheck. It just doesn't seem. I think it's like it doesn't like. For instance, we mentioned like you can keep your shoes on and your belt on, which is cool. But then it's also like, oh, you don't have to take the laptop out of the bag. But with the Smith section, you don't anyway. And yeah, I want to keep my shoes on and my belt on, but that was not. It's like the thing that was causing me all the time is like having to take all the electronics out of my backpack and then put them back into my backpack. So I don't know. I mean, I think this is just simply to say that do some research on TSA PreCheck. We've looked into it a lot, and it does seem like it's really very much like your mileage may vary. Like some people love it. Some people are like the TSA PreCheck lines are longer because everybody's doing it now. So it's a bit of a toss up, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree.
And those are the two security things?
Yes.
Cool. So going to the first of I guess the first thing to talk about, the flights.
No. There's one more special thing.
There's one more special thing? I am
the
not
killing
killing it.
That you told me about earlier that I'd never heard of.
Oh.
Books.
Oh, yeah, of course. That's a good point. Yeah. This is not about security, by the way, for everybody who's like, there's nothing hiding in a book. This is just in the airport. If you are a reader and you like reading a book rather than like a real book rather than a Kindle or an ebook, a lot of airports have a bookstore, like a Hudson News or the CNBC stores, or like I don't know what else. It's the ones you get the drinks and the snacks and the weird tchotchkes and the overpriced M&Ms. And there's a little book selection, and there's a little program with like 4,000 something bookstores around the world in airports where you can buy a book at full price, and then you can return it at a different airport within, it's like 180 days for half of your money back. Or something like that. It's like, which is a little weird because I'm like, why not just return it for the full price? But I don't think they take returns on the books. So I think the idea is like, that because you wouldn't get your money back anyway. So it would be I think it's one of those things where the idea is you can, if you're flying to Rome, let's say, you'd buy a book, read it on the flight, return it in Rome, half your money back, and when you're leaving, buy a new one, read it on the flight, and return it when you get to wherever you're going. It's kind of like a paid library, I think is a good way to put it. It's like a slightly expensive library. But it's a really neat idea if you do like physical books. So yeah, that's a thank you for the reminder.
Yeah, you're welcome. I thought it sounded really cool.
Yeah. So I guess going into I hate to, I'm going into the planes, or am I missing anything else?
I think this is it. Yes.
Okay. It also unfortunately looks like a good place to pause for part 1, and then come into part 2, which threatens to be the same amount of time, I think.
For sure.
So 2 40-minute episodes instead of 1 hour and 20-minute episode.
Yeah, but that's okay.
Well, only because I think you and I do try to make them all about 45 minutes, and we fail miserably week in and week out.
Yes.
So I do think this is maybe the first time we can get close to that 45-minute mark, or 40-minute mark, whatever it is that we thought was like a really nice length for a travel podcast episode. So if you've been enjoying this, the next episode will definitely tackle more about what to bring on a plane.
The actual flight part.
Even what, like, we're going to open it up with what to look for in a plane specifically, like what kind of plane you should be booking on based on who you are. So yes, to continue listening, I guess hit play on the next one, or maybe just like wait for this one to finish and it'll automatically play the next one.
I think it should.
Yeah, is that how that works? So in that case, thank you all so much for listening. And we hope to see you back in just a few brief seconds.
Momentarily. But if you have any questions, like we said at the top, you can find us at Only a Bag Podcast on Instagram. You can email us at onlyabagpodcast@gmail.com. And you can also find our website, onlyabag.com.
Yes. And if you would like to help support Only a Bag, you can do so by using the affiliate links below. If you're going to book a hotel room or a rental car, or if you need a power bank, or if you, which really we're going to talk about more, I guess the power bank is the next episode because it's kind of like important on a plane. But all that being said, that is all in the description. So thank you all so much for listening.
Yeah, talk to you in a few minutes.